His lawyer leaned in and whispered, "Don't sign anything else." But my husband was already smiling, that confident, polished smile he wore in board meetings, the one that used to make investors trust him and used to make me feel safe. He looked at the papers like they were a trophy. Then the judge flipped to the addendum, page 27, and my husband's face went blank. Not angry, not confused, blank. Like someone pulled the plug on his ego. His hand tightened around the pen. His knuckles turned white. The smile slipped off his mouth so fast it looked like it never belonged there. The judge adjusted her glasses and read one sentence out loud, calm and deadly. By requesting sole ownership of all marital assets, Mr. Hale also assumes sole responsibility for all liabilities attached to those assets, including business debts, personal guarantees, and corporate obligations. Silence. The courtroom didn't feel dramatic. It felt clinical, like watching a man realize he'd just signed his own collapse. He tried to laugh just once like it was a misunderstanding, but it came out as air. His lawyer whispered again, "You asked for everything." My husband turned toward me, slowly, like maybe he could still intimidate me with a look. Like maybe I'd flinch. I didn't. I just sat there with my hands folded, wearing the same calm expression I'd practiced for 3 years. And for the first time since the day I stopped recognizing myself in the mirror, I smiled. Not because I wanted revenge, because I was finally free. Now listen carefully, because I need you to understand how we got here. How we went from a broke, happy couple sharing takeout on the floor to a $1 million company, to me walking back into that building after 3 years at home and realizing I'd been replaced in every way that mattered. And yes, there was one moment that still echoes in my head. A woman's voice. Sweet. Fake. And one word in English that made my stomach drop. Oops. Now I'm going to show you the beginning, because the beginning is where the trap was built. My name is Elena Hale. And 3 years ago, I disappeared. Not from the world, from myself. We weren't always rich. When I met Ryan, we were the kind of couple people secretly root for. 2 hungry, optimistic idiots with big dreams and cheap coffee. We built our company together in a tiny rented office above a bakery. I handled operations and accounts. He handled sales and charm. At night, we'd sit on the floor with laptops, eating whatever we could afford, laughing like we had nothing to lose. And back then, he looked at me like I was the reason he'd make it. Then the company took off. 1 big contract turned into 3. 3 turned into 10. We moved into a real office, then a bigger one, then a glass building with our name on the lobby wall. Everyone called him a genius. Everyone forgot I existed. But I didn't complain, because I believed in the life we were building. Then I got pregnant. And for the first time, Ryan didn't look proud. He looked relieved. Like my pregnancy wasn't a miracle. Like it was a convenient reason to put me where he wanted me. At home. "You've done enough," he told me, kissing my forehead like a saint. "Just rest. Take care of the baby. I'll handle everything." It sounded loving. It wasn't. It was removal. Because once I stepped away, my name stopped showing up in meetings. My access got updated. My inbox got quieter. And when my son was born, my body healed, but my mind didn't. Postpartum depression doesn't announce itself like a movie scene. It's quieter than that. It's waking up and feeling nothing. It's staring at the ceiling and thinking, I should be happy. So why do I feel like I'm disappearing? Ryan didn't see it. Or maybe he did. Maybe it was easier for him if I stayed invisible. 3 years passed like that. 3 years of diapers, bottles, forced smiles, and a husband who only touched me when he needed to keep the image of perfect family alive. Then one morning, I woke up and realized something terrifying. If I didn't go back to work, I wouldn't survive myself. So I got dressed. Not in a mom outfit, Not in something soft and forgiving, in the kind of outfit I used to wear when I ran a company. I looked at my reflection and told myself one sentence. Today, I'm walking back into my life. And that's exactly what I did. I walked into Hale Dynamics, the company I helped build, after 3 years away, and every head turned. Not with respect, with confusion, with judgment, with that look people give when they're thinking, why is she here? And that's when I saw her. A new woman, right at the front of my old department, wearing my old authority like it belonged to her, laughing with my husband like she had earned that laugh. And in that moment, before anyone even spoke, I knew exactly what she was. Now I'm going to show you what happened next, because the first conversation I heard between them told me everything, and it started with her voice, and that word again. Oops. I stood there for a second too long. Not because I was scared, because my brain was trying to process something my heart already understood. She was sitting in my chair. Not literally the chair, but the role. My spot. My space. My place beside Ryan. And she looked so comfortable in it that it felt rehearsed. Her nameplate sat on the desk in front of her. Sophie Lane. A name I'd never heard. Which was strange because 3 years ago I knew every single person in that building. Every hire, every promotion, every department shift. But Sophie? Sophie was new, and everyone was acting like she'd always been there. Like she was a permanent fixture. Like I was the strange one. I walked forward, heels steady, chin lifted, pretending my chest wasn't tightening. A few employees smiled at me with that awkward corporate kindness. The kind that says, we're being polite, but we don't want to get involved. Some didn't smile at all. They just stared. Like I'd returned from a long vacation nobody approved of. I reached the glass wall that separated the executive offices from the main floor. And that's when I heard Ryan's voice from inside. Confident. Warm. Familiar. The voice he used when he wanted people to believe him. I said we'd handle it, he told someone. Relax. Then her laugh, soft, light, too familiar. And she said, in English, like it was cute, oops, my bad. I froze, because I knew that tone. That careless little oops that pretends mistakes are harmless, that pretends disrespect is an accident. It was the same kind of oops people use when they've already decided you don't matter. The door opened. Ryan stepped out first. He didn't see me immediately. He was looking down at his phone, smiling like he had nothing heavy in his life. Then he looked up, and his face changed, just for half a second. A micro-expression. Surprise, then irritation, then the quick reset into public-friendly charm. Elena, he said, like he hadn't been ignoring me emotionally for 3 years. You're here early. I stared at him. You said I could come back, I replied. He nodded quickly. Of course, of course. Then Sophie stepped out behind him, and the way she looked at me, not like a stranger, like she'd been expecting this moment, like she'd rehearsed it. She extended her hand with a smile that was too bright. Hi, she said. You must be Elena. Must be. Not you are, not Ryan's wife, not co-founder. Must be. Like my identity was a guess. Like my presence needed confirmation. I didn't shake her hand. Not because I wanted drama. Because my body refused. My eyes went to her wrist. A thin gold bracelet with a tiny engraved tag. I recognized it immediately. Because I had bought the exact same bracelet for Ryan 2 years ago. A matching set. Mine said E. His said R. It was supposed to be something private between us. Something simple, something ours. And there it was. On her. My stomach dropped so hard I felt dizzy. I looked at Ryan. He saw my eyes. And instead of guilt, He gave me that look people give when they want you to behave. The look that says, "Don't do this here." He cleared his throat. She's been helping with operations while you were away," he said quickly. "She's very capable." While you were away, like I'd been on a cruise, like postpartum depression was a spa retreat, like raising our son alone was a hobby. I heard myself speak, calm, but sharp. "I wasn't away," I said. "I was at home, with your child." Ryan's jaw tightened. Sophie smiled again, still sweet. "Oh, totally," she said. "Ryan talks about you all the time." I almost laughed. Because if Ryan talked about me, he didn't talk about me like a person. He talked about me like a problem he managed. Then Sophie leaned slightly closer, like she was sharing a secret. And she said, again in English, with that same fake softness, "Oops. Did I take your spot?" That did it. That sentence wasn't innocent. That sentence was a knife with lipstick on it. My hands curled into fists before I even decided. Ryan's eyes widened slightly, warning. But something inside me snapped. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Quietly. Because I realized the truth. This woman wasn't just sleeping with my husband. She was wearing my life, and everyone in this building had accepted it. I took one step forward. Sophie's smile faltered for the first time. And Ryan said my name. Low. Urgent. "Elena." The way you say a name when you're about to control someone. But I didn't stop. Because now I'm going to show you the moment everything went public. The moment she made one small move. And I answered with something nobody expected. Texto Pedro. Sophie took one small step back. Not because she was scared, because she finally realized I wasn't going to play the polite, broken wife role everyone had assigned me. Her eyes flicked to Ryan. A quick check-in, like she expected him to protect her. And Ryan, he moved. Not toward me, toward her. Just half a step. But it was enough. It was the kind of instinct you don't fake. The kind you don't even notice you're doing. And that was the moment the whole building changed temperature, because I saw it, and so did everyone else. 2 assistants at the reception desk froze with their hands mid-keyboard. A guy from finance stopped walking. The air went thick. Sophie's mouth opened like she wanted to say something sweet again, something careful, something that would make me look crazy. But she didn't get the chance. My hand moved before my brain could talk me out of it. A clean, sharp slap across her face. Not a dramatic wind-up. Not a scene. Just a decision. The sound cracked through the hallway like a gunshot, and for 1 second, the office was so silent, you could hear the AC humming. Sophie's head turned slightly from the impact. Her cheeks flushed fast. Her eyes went wide, then glossy, then furious. Ryan stared at me like he couldn't believe I'd crossed the line. Like I was the one who did something unforgivable. He grabbed my wrist. Hard. "Elena, stop. Stop." Like this was a tantrum. Like I was a problem. Not the wife. Not the mother of his child. Not the woman who helped build the company before the money, before the suits, before the ego. I looked at his hand around my wrist. Then I looked at his face. And I smiled. Because I understood something in that exact second. He wasn't shocked that Sophie got hit. He was shocked that I still had power. I leaned closer, voice low enough only he could hear. "Don't touch me." His grip loosened, but his eyes were cold now. Not worried, calculating. He was already thinking about optics, about reputation, about controlling the story. Sophie pressed her palm to her cheek, breathing fast like she was about to cry. But there was something behind it. A tiny smirk, because she thought she'd won. She thought the slap would make me the villain. And Ryan, right on schedule, gave her what she wanted. He turned to the nearest employees, forcing his voice to sound calm. "Everyone, back to work." Like this was a minor inconvenience. Like he was the CEO cleaning up a spill. Then he looked at me again, and the warmth was gone. "You need to go home." I tilted my head. "Home?" I repeated. "You mean the place I stayed while you played husband somewhere else?" His jaw tightened. "This is not the time." Oh, it was the time. Because now it was public. Now everybody knew exactly what kind of man he was, and exactly what kind of woman Sophie was. She tried to speak, voice shaking, acting like a victim. "I didn't mean to—" I cut her off instantly. "Yes, you did." Sophie's eyes flashed. Then she looked at Ryan, and he did something so small most people wouldn't catch it. He nodded, just once, like permission, and Sophie switched tactics immediately. Her lips trembled, voice softer. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were coming back today." Liar. She knew. She was waiting. That oops wasn't an accident. It was a signal. And Ryan was already done with me. I saw it in his eyes. The decision was already made. He just needed the cleanest way to execute it. He lowered his voice, corporate smooth. "You assaulted an employee. Employee, not mistress, not affair, employee." He was rewriting reality in real time. He continued, slow and measured. "This ends here. I'm filing for divorce." There it was, clean, final, like a contract termination. And then he added the second part, like he'd rehearsed it. "And I'm keeping the company, the house, everything." Everything. The word hung in the air like a threat, like a declaration of ownership. And the craziest part? He said it with confidence. Because he believed it. Because for 3 years, I'd been gone from this building, gone from the boardroom, gone from the money conversations. Because while I was fighting my own mind, he was building a story where I didn't exist. I stared at him. Then I nodded. Very slowly. "Okay," I said. And that one word made Sophie blink. Because she expected screaming. Ryan expected begging. Everyone expected me to collapse. But I didn't. I turned my gaze past them, toward the glass walls, toward the open office, toward the people watching. And I said something calm enough to sound harmless, but sharp enough to make Ryan's eyes darken. "Perfect," I said. "Take everything." Ryan's expression flickered with satisfaction. He thought that meant surrender. He had no idea it meant a trap. Because now I'm going to show you what he didn't understand. What he never checked. What he signed years ago without reading, because he thought love meant ownership. And once you hear this part, you'll understand why I let him have everything so easily. Ryan didn't even try to hide his relief. He straightened his tie, nodded once, and walked away like a man who'd just won a war. Sophie stayed behind, watching me like she wanted to memorize the moment. The defeated wife, the public breakdown, the cautionary tale. I could almost hear the story she'd tell later. She came back unstable. She attacked me. Ryan had no choice. I smiled at her. Not a friendly smile. The kind that makes someone feel cold inside. Then I turned and walked out of the building with my chin up, like nothing had happened. Because I wasn't running. I was repositioning. Outside, the air hit my face, and I finally let myself breathe. Not in panic. In focus. I opened my phone and called the only person who'd still answer on the first ring. My sister, Mara. She picked up instantly. "Elena?" I didn't waste time. "It's happening," I said. "He filed. He wants everything." There was a pause. Then Mara's voice sharpened. "Okay, where are you?" Outside the office. Good, she said. Don't go back home. Come to my place. I could have cried right then. Not because I was broken, because someone still treated me like I mattered. I drove to Mara's apartment with my hand steady on the wheel, and the whole way, I replayed Ryan's voice in my head. I'm keeping the company, the house, everything. He said it like a man demanding a trophy. But here's what Ryan never understood about me. Before I became a mom, before I got sick inside my own head, before I disappeared into survival mode, I was the one who organized our life. I was the one who handled paperwork, contracts, emails, signatures. And I never stopped being that woman. I just went quiet. At Mara's place, I sat at her kitchen table and stared at my hands. Mara pushed a glass of water toward me. Tell me everything, she said. So I did. The return, the new woman, the humiliating oops, the slap, the divorce threat. Mara's mouth tightened. He's going to try to destroy you, she said. I know, I replied. Then I looked up. And I'm going to let him. Mara blinked. What? I leaned forward, lowering my voice like this was a business deal. I'm going to let him take everything he thinks is valuable. Because that's how you beat a greedy man. You don't fight him for what he wants. You hand it to him, with the weight attached. Mara stared at me, trying to understand. So I said it clearly. He doesn't want assets. He wants a picture of victory. Mara frowned. Elena, what are you not telling me? I didn't answer with words. I answered by reaching into my bag and pulling out a thin folder. Not thick, not dramatic, just enough. I slid it across the table. Mara opened it, and her eyes widened. At the top was one document Ryan had forgotten existed. A signed operating agreement from the early days, back when we were broke and desperate and building the company on borrowed time, back when Ryan was too excited about being the boss to read the fine print. Mara flipped through the pages, scanning fast. What is this? That, I said calmly, is the reason I'm not scared. Mara's finger stopped on a paragraph. I watched her lips move as she read. Then her face changed. What the hell? I nodded. Yeah. Because that agreement wasn't just about ownership. It was about liability, debt, personal guarantees. What happens when the company goes under? What happens when the loans get called? And the part Ryan never noticed? The part he never expected me to keep? My name was missing from the newest versions, because 3 years ago, when I first started slipping into depression, Ryan started handling things for me. Don't worry, babe, I've got it. He took me off accounts, off approvals, off emails. He called it helping. It wasn't. It was erasing. And in his arrogance, he did something beautiful. He made sure the risk was his. Mara looked up at me, voice low. Elena, are you saying what I think you're saying? I met her gaze. I'm saying he's about to learn what everything really means. Because while Ryan was parading success, there were loans, lines of credit, a second mortgage on the office building, vendor payments pushed back, client refunds delayed, and the scariest part? He had started moving money in ways that didn't match the books. Not enough to look obvious, just enough to think nobody would notice. But I noticed. I had quiet months, long nights, days where I couldn't get out of bed. But I could still read. I could still screenshot. I could still save files into a private drive. And I did. Mara slowly closed the folder like it was explosive. So what do you do now? I took a breath, and I said the next move. I hire a lawyer, I said. Not to fight him. Mara frowned. Then why? I leaned in, eyes steady. To let him win. officially. Texto padrón, because once Ryan signs the divorce settlement claiming the company, the house, and everything, he also signs the debts, the lawsuits, the guarantees, the financial mess he created, and I walk away clean, with my life, my dignity, and a new plan. Mara stared at me for a long moment. Then she whispered, "You're going to let him hang himself with his own signature." I smiled. Exactly. And right then, my phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. "Tomorrow, 9 a.m., mediation. Don't make this ugly." I stared at the screen, then typed back one sentence. "Whatever you want, Ryan. I'm done fighting." And when I hit send, I felt something return inside me. Not happiness, not peace. Power. Now I'm going to show you what happened in that first mediation, and how I played the most convincing role of my life. The mediation office smelled like stale coffee and expensive cologne. Ryan walked in first, confident, relaxed, like he was about to sign a contract, not end a marriage. Sophie wasn't supposed to be there, but of course she was. Sitting in the lobby like a trophy on display, legs crossed, scrolling her phone, pretending she didn't care. Her presence wasn't an accident. It was a message. Look how replaceable you are. Ryan's lawyer was polished and loud, the kind of man who spoke like every sentence was already a verdict. My lawyer, Nina Alvarez, didn't speak much. She watched. She listened. And she didn't miss anything. When Ryan saw me, his eyes flicked over my clothes like he was assessing damage. No makeup. Hair pulled back. Plain dark dress. I looked like grief. I looked like defeat. Perfect. Ryan sat down and immediately started with his favorite word. Fair. "I'm being fair," he said. "I built the company. I'm keeping the company. Elena can have a settlement to help her move on." Move on, like I was a broken chair. His lawyer slid papers toward Nina. A proposed agreement. Ryan keeps the company. Ryan keeps the house. Ryan keeps the cars. Ryan keeps all business assets and associated operations. And I get a number. One number. A small number. Ryan watched my face carefully, waiting for me to explode. Waiting for tears, for anger, for the version of me he could point at later and say, "See? She's unstable." Instead, I lowered my eyes and whispered, "Okay." Ryan blinked. His lawyer paused. Even Sophie looked up from her phone for a second. Nina looked at me sideways, not shocked, just calculating. Ryan leaned back, satisfied. "I knew you'd come around," he said. I kept my voice soft. "I don't want conflict," I said. "I just want peace for our child." Ryan's mouth twitched like he was trying not to smile, because that sentence hits like perfume on an ego. He thought he was the bigger person, the generous man, the hero saving the family from a difficult wife. His lawyer pushed harder. "We'll need full custody terms documented. Also, Elena must agree not to disparage Ryan or the company." "Disparage," I nodded again. "Of course." Ryan's confidence grew so fast you could almost see it expand. He started talking more, saying more than he should. "I can't have drama," he said. "Investors get nervous." Investors. He didn't even realize what he'd admitted out loud. Because investors only get nervous when there's something to be nervous about. Nina asked one gentle question. "Are you sure you want the company fully in your name?" Ryan laughed once, short and sharp. "Yes." Nina nodded like she accepted it. Then she asked, even calmer, "And the associated obligations tied to the company operations?" Ryan waved his hand. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Like debt is just background noise." Nina didn't argue. She let him talk. Because the fastest way to make a man sign a trap is to let him feel smart. We took a break midway through. In the hallway, Nina pulled me aside. Her voice was low. "Elena, are you sure you want to do this?" I looked up at her, and for the first time, I dropped the act. Just for her. "I'm not giving up," I whispered. "I'm letting him grab the rope." Nina's eyes narrowed. Then she nodded once. "Okay," she said. "Then we do it clean. No mistakes." Back inside, I became even smaller. I asked for less. I apologized for things I didn't do. I said words Ryan loved to hear. "I understand. You deserve it. I'm not trying to take what you built." Ryan looked relieved, like he finally got rid of a problem. And the more relieved he became, the more careless he became. He started listing what he wanted next. "My accounts stay untouched. The business stays mine. The house stays mine. I'll keep everything and she'll just move on." Move on. That phrase again. He didn't know every time he said it. He was tightening the knot. By the end of the session, we had the skeleton of a deal. Ryan left the room almost glowing. And on the way out, he said something to Nina that made me almost laugh. "Thank you for keeping her reasonable." Keeping her reasonable. Like I was a child. Nina waited until he walked away, then leaned close to my ear. "He thinks you're broken." I let my face stay blank. "Good," I whispered. "Let him." Because now he was comfortable. Now he was arrogant. Now he would sign faster. And once he signed, he would realize everything wasn't a prize. It was a sinking ship. Now, I'm going to show you the exact moment Ryan got greedy and demanded a final deadline. The deadline that made him skip the fine print. The next mediation session happened 2 weeks later, and Ryan walked in like a man scheduling a haircut. Not a divorce. He didn't even sit down before saying it. "I want this finalized. Fast." His lawyer tried to slow him down. "We should review the valuation again." Ryan cut him off with a sharp look. "No, we're done dragging this out." Then he glanced at me, like he expected gratitude. "You're getting your little settlement. You should be happy." Little. That word. It was always the same with him. If something didn't serve his ego, it was little. My work was little. My pain was little. My sacrifice was little. I lowered my eyes and nodded like I agreed. "I just want it over," I said softly. Ryan exhaled like I'd finally become convenient. And then Sophie appeared. Not in the room, but in the reflection. Glass wall, lobby, visible through the doorway. Standing there with her phone, smiling like she owned the building. And Ryan noticed me noticing. He leaned back, smug. "You'll be fine," he said. "You always bounce back." Like that was a compliment. Like bouncing back wasn't something I was forced to learn because he kept pushing. Nina opened her folder. She slid 1 page forward, calm as a surgeon. "This is the asset transfer agreement," she said, "and these are the attached disclosures." Ryan's lawyer reached for the pages, but Ryan reached faster, and that told me everything. When a man rushes to sign, it's not confidence, it's hunger. He flipped through the first pages like they were menus. Sign, sign, initial, initial. Then he paused on a section and frowned. "What's this?" Nina's voice didn't change. "Standard disclosure." Ryan looked at his lawyer, annoyed. "We don't need all this." His lawyer tried again. "We really should walk through the liabilities." Ryan's jaw tightened. I said no. Then he looked straight at Nina. "I want it done today." Nina held his gaze and nodded. "Of course." I watched Ryan's lawyer swallow whatever warning he had left, because even the best lawyer can't save a client who's addicted to winning. And Ryan was addicted to the image of himself walking away victorious. So Nina did something brilliant. She didn't argue. She didn't fight. She let him believe the paperwork was boring. Let him believe the danger was emotional, not technical. Ryan leaned back and grinned. "See?" he said, glancing at his lawyer. "She's not fighting. I told you." Then he turned to me. "Say it," he said. I blinked like I didn't understand. "Say what?" He smiled, low and cruel. "Say you're giving up." There it was. Not a legal need. An emotional need. He didn't want the assets. He wanted the sentence. He wanted me to feed his story. So I gave him exactly what he wanted. I made my voice crack just enough. "I'm not fighting you anymore." Ryan's eyes softened like he'd just won a trophy. "That's better," he said. And in that moment, he stopped being careful completely. He signed the last page faster than anyone in the room. His pen scratched hard, like he was carving his name into the world. He didn't read the attachments. He didn't ask questions. He didn't notice Nina's fingers resting calmly on the thick addendum. The addendum he hadn't even opened. The one that listed every single debt tied to everything he was taking. Mortgages, loans, lines of credit, guarantees, legal exposure, the invisible weight behind the shiny assets. Ryan stood up, already celebrating. "I'm done," he said. "Send me the final hearing date." His lawyer hesitated. Ryan didn't even look back. "No more delays." And then he did something even dumber. He sent me a text that night. A text he thought was generous. A text he thought would make him look good. It said, "Thanks for being reasonable. You finally did the right thing." I stared at it. Then I smiled. Because he just proved again. He still didn't understand me at all. Now I'm going to show you what happened the day before court. The day Ryan's own lawyer tried one last time to stop him, and Ryan signed a waiver that destroyed him. The day before court, Nina called me at 8:12 p.m. Her voice was calm, almost amused. "He's panicking," she said. I sat up on my couch. "Ryan?" "No," she replied. "His lawyer." That made my stomach tighten in a new way. Because Ryan never panicked. Ryan only acted like he panicked when he wanted sympathy. But his lawyer? That man had read the paperwork. He knew. Nina continued. "Ryan's attorney requested an emergency call. He wants a full financial audit before the hearing." I let out a slow breath. There it is. Nina made a soft sound, almost a laugh. He finally noticed the addendum. I pictured it perfectly. A man in a suit, alone in an office, flipping pages, realizing the assets weren't prizes. They were anchors. "And Ryan?" I asked. Nina paused. Ryan refused. Of course he did. Because to Ryan, an audit wasn't responsible. It was insulting. A challenge to his ego. Nina lowered her voice. And he refused in the most Ryan way possible. I waited. He said, "I don't need an accountant to tell me what I own. I built it. I know what it's worth." I closed my eyes. That sentence was practically a signature. Not on paper. On his fate. Nina kept going. His lawyer pushed harder than I've ever heard a lawyer push a client. He told Ryan, in plain words, "This is dangerous." He said he strongly recommends a review. "And Ryan?" I asked again, even though I already knew. Nina's tone turned crisp. Ryan said, "Sophie wants this done. I want this done. No more delays." There it was. The real engine behind his decisions. Not logic, not finance, not family. A younger woman whispering urgency into his ear. And a man desperate to prove he could still be the man. Nina's voice softened. So the lawyer did the only thing he could do. "What?" I asked. "He created a waiver." My fingers tightened around my phone. A waiver that says he recommended an audit, and Ryan declined against counsel's advice. I swallowed. "That's lethal," Nina said. "Exactly." Then she added the most important line. "He signed it without reading it. I couldn't help it. A laugh slipped out of me. Not joy, not cruelty, just disbelief at how predictable arrogance is. Nina let me have that moment, then said, "This waiver protects his lawyer, and it kills Ryan's argument tomorrow. Because tomorrow, when the numbers hit him, when he tries to scream fraud, when he tries to point at me like I tricked him, the judge will ask one question, 'Why didn't you verify?' And the lawyer will answer, 'I told him to. He refused. He signed that refusal.'" Nina paused. "Do you understand what that means?" I stared at the blank wall of my apartment, the cheap lamp, the quiet, the life he thought he'd forced me into. And I whispered, "It means he signed his own collapse." Nina's voice sharpened. "Yes." Then she said something that made my skin go cold in the best way. "Tomorrow, Ryan is going to walk into court thinking he's taking your life. But he's actually taking his." I hung up and sat there in silence. Then my phone buzzed. A message. From Ryan. "Tomorrow is the last day you'll ever have my name." I read it twice. Then I typed back, "Good." One word. Nothing else. I didn't need to argue. I didn't need to threaten. Because the trap wasn't emotional anymore. It was legal, and it was already closed. Now I'm going to show you the courtroom scene. The moment the clerk handed over the final documents, and Ryan's lawyer went pale before anyone else even understood why. Thursday, 9:00 a.m. Courtroom 4B. I remember it like a photograph. Old wood benches, fluorescent lights that made everyone look slightly tired, the soft shuffle of papers, the smell of floor polish and cold air conditioning. This was where 15 years would be turned into signatures. Ryan arrived first. Of course he did. He walked in like a man collecting a trophy. Charcoal suit, crisp tie, that smug, practiced calm he used whenever he thought he was in control. And on his wrist, a new watch. He angled it just enough for the light to catch it. Not for time. For ego. Sophie was in the hallway. She wasn't allowed inside, but she was close enough to feel like a victory lap. Perfect hair, perfect makeup. Scrolling her phone like this was just another appointment. Ryan's mother sat behind him with her arms crossed, watching me the way people watch a storm they think won't hit them. Then I walked in. Plain navy dress, no jewelry. Hair pulled back. My face looked tired on purpose. My shoulders looked smaller on purpose. I brought the version of me they expected. The woman who gave up. The judge entered, Patricia Holden. Silver hair, reading glasses, the kind of expression that said she'd heard every lie 1,000 times and never once felt impressed. She reviewed the file, then looked up. Mercer versus Mercer. Final hearing. Her eyes moved between us. I understand an agreement has been reached. Ryan's attorney stood first. Your Honor, my client is assuming all marital assets, including the residence, the business, and the vehicles. In exchange, Mrs. Mercer receives a cash settlement of $50,000. He said it like it was clean, like it was generous, like it was fair. Nina stood beside me. That's correct, Your Honor. Then the judge looked directly at me, not at my lawyer, at me. Mrs. Mercer, she said, I need to confirm you understand what you're agreeing to. Her voice was firm, but not unkind. You're giving up your claim to substantial property, the home, the business you helped build. She paused. Are you certain this is what you want? I let my voice soften, just enough. Yes, Your Honor. And you're entering voluntarily? She asked. No one is pressuring you? I lowered my eyes the way broken women do in movies. No, Your Honor. Then I added quietly, I just want him to have everything he asked for. The judge studied me for a long moment. I could see it. Her internal debate. protect the woman who looks like she's being steamrolled, or respect her as an adult who's represented by counsel. Finally, she nodded. Very well. The clerk began distributing papers. Stacks, pages, signature lines every few pages. Ryan grabbed the pen first, signed fast, barely looked. Like he was signing a dinner receipt. He was already mentally gone. Already celebrating. Already imagining Sophie in my kitchen with her hands on my counters. I signed slowly. Every stroke deliberate. Because I wasn't signing a loss. I was signing a release. Across the aisle, Ryan's mother leaned toward him with a satisfied smile. Like it was over. Like she'd won. Then Ryan's lawyer started reviewing the packet, one last time. Because unlike Ryan, lawyers don't celebrate until they're sure the floor is solid. He flipped. He checked. He nodded. Then he reached the addendum, the liability disclosure statement. I watched his face change in real time. First confusion, then focus. Then that small freeze that happens when someone realizes they're holding a grenade. He flipped back a page, then forward again, as if the numbers might rearrange themselves out of kindness. They didn't. His skin went pale. He leaned toward Ryan, trying to keep it quiet. "Sir," he whispered, "we need to talk." Ryan didn't even look at him. "Not now," he muttered. "We're almost done." The lawyer tried again, voice tighter. "Sir, you're assuming all debt." Ryan finally turned. "What?" The lawyer pointed. "The mortgages, the business liens, the vehicle obligations. It's attached. It's part of the agreement." For the first time that morning, Ryan actually looked at the page. His eyes moved down the columns. And I saw it. That tiny delay. The moment his brain tried to reject reality. Then his mouth opened slightly, like he couldn't understand why the world wasn't matching his fantasy. Now I'm going to show you the exact moment he read the totals. The moment his smug face went blank, and his hands started to shake. Ryan's eyes kept moving. Down the page. Line by line. Like he was searching for a sentence that said, "Just kidding." But the numbers were calm, cruel, unbothered. House, $1.1 million owed. Market value, $850,000. Business, $480,000 in combined liabilities. Vendor debt, back taxes, credit lines, equipment loans, vehicles, $115,000 in lease obligations. Additional personal liabilities, $200,000. The total sat at the bottom like a verdict. Approximate debt, $1.9 million. Approximate asset value, $1.6 million. Net, negative $300,000. Ryan blinked once, twice. Then he whispered, almost like a child. No, that can't be right." His lawyer didn't whisper back. He didn't have the luxury anymore. "It is right. It's attached. It's enforceable. And you signed it." Ryan's jaw tightened. He shot up from his chair so fast it screeched against the floor. "This is fraud," he snapped, loud enough that heads turned. "She hid this. She manipulated the documents." Judge Holden's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Mr. Mercer, sit down." Ryan didn't sit. He stared at the papers like they were poison. "These numbers are fake," he insisted. She changed something." The judge didn't flinch. "Mr. Mercer, sit down." He sat. But his hands were shaking so hard, the pages trembled. Judge Holden picked up the packet and adjusted her glasses. Then she looked at him like he was embarrassing himself in slow motion. "Mr. Mercer," she said, "I'm looking at debts associated with assets you are claiming." She tapped the page. "These mortgages are in your name. These business obligations are in your name." Her eyes stayed locked on his. "Are you telling this court you don't know your own financial situation?" Silence, the kind that makes your heart beat loud. Ryan's lawyer cleared his throat. "Your Honor, I should note, I advised my client to conduct an independent financial audit before finalizing." Ryan's head snapped toward him. No. But the lawyer continued. He declined. I have documentation. And then he pulled it out. A waiver. Signed. Stamped. Clear. The judge read it for 3 seconds, then looked up. So Mr. Mercer was advised to verify. He chose not to. She turned the waiver slightly. Is this your signature, Mr. Mercer? Ryan stared at it like it was a snake. His voice came out small. Yes. The judge nodded once. Then you assumed this risk voluntarily. Ryan's breathing turned shallow. He looked at me. Not with arrogance now, not with victory, with something cracked. You knew, he said, voice breaking. You knew about this. I met his eyes calmly. I was your bookkeeper for 11 years, Ryan. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't smile. I didn't need to. I knew everything. His face cycled through emotions too fast to fake. Confusion, rage, fear. And finally, realization. The kind that makes a man feel naked. I want to withdraw, he blurted, turning back to the judge. I didn't understand what I was signing. This isn't fair. Judge Holden didn't even hesitate. Mr. Mercer, you were represented by competent counsel. She nodded toward his attorney. You declined additional review. She looked him dead in the eye. These are your debts. Then she raised the gavel. The agreement stands. The sound of wood striking wood was soft, but it hit like thunder. Mrs. Mercer, you have your settlement. Mr. Mercer, you have the assets as agreed, along with all associated liabilities. She paused. This marriage is dissolved. I stood, smoothed my dress, picked up my purse, and then I said the only thing I'd wanted him to hear for years, quietly, so only he could truly feel it. You asked for everything, except our son. I leaned in just enough. I gave you exactly what you asked for. I walked out. Behind me, Ryan's voice exploded, accusing, begging, threatening, but it didn't matter, because the law didn't care about his tantrum, and neither did I. Now I'm going to show you what happened in the hallway. The moment Sophie realized she didn't just steal a man, she inherited a sinking ship. The hallway outside courtroom 4B felt like a different world, brighter, louder, full of people who weren't inside when Ryan's life collapsed in ink. I stepped through the doors first, calm, measured, like I'd just signed a lease, not a divorce. And then I saw her, Sophie, leaning against the wall like she owned the building. Designer bag, perfect hair, perfect face. The kind of woman who thinks confidence is a substitute for character. Her eyes flicked to me, then back to the doors, waiting for Ryan to come out smiling, waiting for her upgrade, waiting for her trophy moment. But what came through those doors wasn't a winner. It was a man with paper-shaking hands, a man with a face so pale it looked edited. Ryan stumbled into the hall like he'd been punched. His lawyer followed, talking fast, voice low, trying to control a fire with a glass of water. Sophie straightened instantly. Her mouth lifted into a practiced smile. Texto padrón. Baby, she said sweetly, stepping forward. Is it done? Ryan didn't answer. He couldn't. His eyes were locked on the papers like they were a death certificate. Sophie's smile faltered. Just a millimeter. Then her eyes dropped. To the documents, to the numbers, to the way Ryan's hands were shaking so hard he could barely hold them. What is that? She asked, still trying to sound light. Why do you look like... Ryan's lawyer said something she wasn't supposed to hear. A phrase that slipped out too loud. Assuming all liabilities. Sophie blinked. Liabilities? She repeated. What liabilities? Ryan finally looked up, and the look on his face wasn't love. It wasn't even anger. It was panic, raw, unfiltered. the kind a man shows when he realizes he can't charm his way out. He reached for her arm like she was a life raft. "Soph, listen." She pulled back, hard. "What did you do?" she demanded, voice sharpening. "What did you sign?" Ryan's lawyer tried to intercept. "Ma'am, this isn't—" But Sophie wasn't looking at him. She was staring at the top page. And when she saw the number, her lips parted. "No." Her voice was small now, almost scared. Ryan swallowed. "It's temporary," he said too fast. It's complicated. I'll fix it." Sophie looked at him like she'd never met him. Then she said the words that told me everything about her. "So, you're not rich." Ryan flinched. "I am. I will be." But she wasn't listening. Texto Padrón because she wasn't in love with him. She was in love with the story, the house, the cars, the status, the caption under the photo. She glanced at me, like I was the reason her fantasy ended. Then her eyes snapped back to Ryan. "You lied to me." Ryan's face twisted. "No, Sophie stepped away. One step, then another, like she was physically separating herself from bad luck. And that's when Ryan did something desperate. He grabbed her wrist. Not hard, but hard enough. "Sophie, don't leave right now." She yanked her arm free like he was contagious. Her voice went icy. "Don't touch me." The hallway went silent. People were pretending not to watch, but everyone was watching. Sophie adjusted her bag on her shoulder, took a breath, and then she said it. Clear, cold. "This isn't what I signed up for." And she walked away, fast, heels clicking like punctuation. Ryan stared after her, frozen, like he couldn't understand how quickly loyalty disappears when money does. I didn't say anything. I just walked past him. Because the only thing left to do was leave. And the moment I stepped outside, the sun hit my face. Warm. Honest. Like the world was saying, "You're free." Now I'm going to show you what happened 2 weeks later, when Ryan tried to sell the house, and discovered there were no buyers for a dream that costs more than it's worth. 2 weeks after the hearing, my phone started buzzing again. Not with apologies. Not with, "I miss you." With panic. Because reality doesn't care about ego. And Ryan's reality showed up the same way it always does. As a bill. At first, I didn't hear anything directly. I heard it through the cracks. Tyler came home quiet. He set his backpack down and said, like it was nothing, "Dad's trying to sell the house." I didn't react. I just nodded, because I already knew why. When your world is built on image, the first thing you try to do is cash out the picture frame. But here's the part Ryan didn't understand. When you owe more than something is worth, you don't have an asset. You have a problem. He listed the house with a top agent, professional photos, staging, fresh flowers in vases that weren't mine anymore. The listing description probably called it a dream home, but a dream home doesn't come with 3 mortgages stacked like a bad lie, and banks don't care how pretty the kitchen looks. They care about numbers. The first offer fell through in 48 hours, not because of the paint color, because the buyer's lender did what Ryan refused to do. They audited. They pulled the liens. They saw the debt. And they walked. Then another offer came. Smaller. Cautious. That one died even faster. Because the inspection didn't just find a crack in a wall, it found a crack in the whole story. There were repairs Ryan had ignored for years. Because he wasn't maintaining a home. He was maintaining a performance. The agent tried to be gentle. I know this because Tyler told me later, with that half-amused, half-sad face teenagers get when adults embarrass themselves. She said the numbers don't work, Mom. Like, she literally said that. Of course she did. Then the calls started. Collections. First polite, then persistent, then relentless. The first missed payment is a warning. The second is a threat. The third is a countdown. Ryan was getting hit from every angle. Mortgage company, second mortgage, third mortgage, business line of credit, vendors who hadn't been paid, tax notices, late fees that multiply like ants. His empire wasn't collapsing. It was being repossessed in slow motion. And the best part? Ryan couldn't blame me. Not legally, not publicly, because he had signed. He had insisted. He had demanded everything. So when the weight finally fell, it fell on him alone. Tyler told me Ryan started showing up at school events again. Not because he suddenly became a devoted father. Because he was trying to look stable. Trying to look like a man who still had control. But even Tyler saw it. "Dad keeps asking if I'm okay," Tyler said one night, sitting at my small kitchen table. I kept my voice calm. "And are you?" He shrugged. "I'm okay. It's just weird." "Why?" Tyler hesitated, then said it quietly. "He keeps acting like he's the victim." That line hit me harder than anything else, because that's what men like Ryan do. They drown in the consequences of their choices, and still look around for someone to blame. A week later, I got the first text from Lorraine. Not a demand, not an insult. A new tactic, a soft one. It read, "We didn't know it was this bad." I stared at it for a long moment, and I didn't respond. Because "we didn't know" is not an apology. It's a defense. It's a way to rewrite history without taking responsibility. And I was done being written into their story as the villain. My life had gotten smaller. Sure. But it had gotten cleaner. Quieter. Safer. And every day Ryan's life got louder, messier, and more desperate. Was another day I knew I had done the right thing. Now I'm going to show you the moment Ryan finally broke. Because he didn't come to me first. He went to the one person he thought would always rescue him. His mother. And even she couldn't stop what was coming. 3 months after the divorce, the knock came. Not loud. Not confident. A knock that sounded like someone asking permission to exist. I already knew it was him. Because nobody else knocks like that. I opened the door, and for a second, I almost didn't recognize Ryan. No perfect suit, no smug grin, no, "I'm doing you a favor" posture. His hair was messy, his eyes were tired, and his wrist was empty. That expensive watch he bought to celebrate winning was gone. He looked like a man who'd been carrying a lie on his back for years, and finally collapsed under it. "Alexis," he said, voice rough. I didn't know it was this bad." I didn't step aside. I didn't invite him in. I just leaned on the doorframe and waited. Because when someone has spent years ignoring your reality, you don't rush to comfort them when theirs catches fire. He swallowed, eyes flicking past me into my apartment. The small couch, the simple rug, the sage green kitchen I painted myself. The life that didn't impress anyone, but belonged completely to me. "Can we talk?" he asked. "Maybe we can figure something out." He couldn't even finish the sentence, because saying the truth out loud would make it real. He didn't come here to talk. He came here to ask for help. My help. The same help he took for granted when I was his unpaid everything. I kept my voice calm. "What do you want, Ryan?" His jaw tightened. He looked down, then back up like he was trying to hold on to pride with shaking hands. "I made mistakes," he said. "I know that now." Then he tried to reach for the emotional card. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." I almost laughed. Almost. Because that sentence is how men like him survive. They don't intend destruction. They just live like consequences are for other people. I watched him carefully. This wasn't guilt. This was grief. Not for what he did to me, but for what was happening to him. Behind him, I could see the hallway light catching his face. He looked older. Not because of time. Because of pressure. "Tyler," he said suddenly, like saying our son's name might unlock sympathy. "I'm worried about Tyler." That's when I felt it. That tiny shift. The manipulation trying to sneak back in. So I cut it off clean. "Don't," I said. He froze. I kept going. "You asked for everything except Tyler." His eyes flickered. "Alexis." "No," I repeated. "You asked for everything. You got exactly what you wanted." He tried again, softer. "Please, can you at least tell me what to do?" And there it was. The real sentence, the truth. He needed direction. Because without me managing his life, his world was chaos. I held his gaze. And I didn't say anything for a few seconds. Because silence is powerful when someone is finally hearing you. Then I said it, slow and clear. "You're looking at the wrong person." He blinked, confused. I leaned in just slightly. "The woman who rescued you was your wife. I'm not your wife anymore." His face tightened. He looked like he wanted to argue, like he wanted to bargain, like he wanted to rewrite the moment. But he couldn't, because the law didn't care, and neither did I. So I gave him the only gift he deserved. The truth. "I hope you figure it out," I said. "But you're not dragging me back into your mess." His lips parted like he wanted to say something dramatic. Something that would make him feel like the hero again. But nothing came out. Just breath. Just defeat. And then I did the one thing that would haunt him more than any insult. I ended it calmly. "Goodbye, Ryan." And I closed the door. I didn't slam it. I didn't shake. I didn't cry. I just closed it like a chapter. And through the peephole, I watched him stand there. Still. For a long time. Like a man waiting for the old version of me to come back. But she wasn't coming. Now I'm going to show you what happened next. Because Ryan didn't just lose me. He lost everyone who only loved the image. And the first person to leave was the one he thought would stay no matter what. Now I'm going to show you the part Ryan never expected. The part that happened fast enough to make his stomach drop. Because the mistress wasn't loyal. She was only late to the truth. 2 weeks after the hearing, Ryan walked into the house like a man still trying to pretend he'd won. He still had the keys. He still had the address. He still had the assets. But now the house felt different. Not warm. Not proud. Not like a victory. It felt like a museum of debt. The bank letters started arriving first. Polite envelopes, then urgent ones, then the kind with red stamps that don't ask anymore. Ryan didn't tell her everything. Of course he didn't. Men like Ryan never admit they're falling. They just start sinking quietly and hope nobody notices. But she noticed, because the lifestyle began to glitch. A card declined at a boutique. A payment processing error at dinner. A contractor refusing to start work without cash up front. Little humiliations, little cracks. And the thing about women like her is they don't stay for the rebuild. They stay for the view. One night, Ryan came home late, not because he was working, because he was begging. Begging the bank, begging vendors, begging anyone who would listen. He walked in and heard movement upstairs. Not the kind of movement that means someone's waiting, the kind that means someone's leaving. He climbed the steps and found her in the closet. Suitcases open, drawers emptied. His clothes shoved to one side like they were contamination. She didn't even look guilty. She looked annoyed, like his collapse was an inconvenience to her schedule. "What are you doing?" he demanded. She didn't flinch. "I'm packing." He laughed once, like it was a joke, but his voice cracked. "You can't be serious." She finally turned, lipstick perfect, hair perfect. Even in the middle of betrayal, she was polished. "Ryan," she said, like explaining something simple to a child. "This isn't what I signed up for." That line, that one line, took everything he'd been pretending and shoved it into daylight. He stepped closer. "You said you loved me." She blinked slowly. And that's when I realized something even from a distance, hearing it later from Tyler, from mutual friends, from the way the story always leaks. She wasn't cruel. She was empty. "I loved what you were," she said. "And now, you're not that." Ryan's face tightened. He looked like he wanted to scream, but men like him don't scream when they're afraid. They negotiate. He tried to bargain with her like he bargained with me. "We can fix it," he said. "We just need time." She zipped the suitcase. Hard, like a punctuation mark. "No," she said. "You need time." "I need options." He reached for her wrist. Not gently. Not lovingly. Possessive. And she pulled back like touching him was suddenly embarrassing. "Don't," she warned. He froze, because for the first time, he saw himself. Not as a winner. Not as a businessman. But as a man with no leverage. She grabbed her designer bag, walked past him, and paused at the bedroom door. And just to make sure the knife went in clean, she added, "I hope you figure it out." Then she left. He followed her down the stairs, still trying to salvage control. "Where are you going?" She didn't answer. He watched her step into the elevator, and right before the doors closed, she looked back, not with sadness, not with regret, with relief, like she'd escaped something contagious. The doors shut, and Ryan stood there alone in the house he fought to keep, with the silence of his own choices echoing off the walls. Now, I'm going to show you what happened right after that. Because once she left, the empire didn't just crack, it started collapsing in public. Now I'm going to show you the part that hurts a man like Ryan more than losing money. Losing the illusion. Because once the mistress left, he had no audience, no trophy, no proof that the divorce was worth it. Just the bills, just the silence, and just the panic he'd been pushing down for months. He tried to fix it fast. That's what arrogant men do when reality shows up. They don't accept it. They try to outspend it, outrun it, outlie it. Ryan listed the house. Full staging, glossy photos, a drone video that made the place look like a lifestyle, not a liability. The listing headline practically screamed, "Luxury, prestige, a rare opportunity." But the market doesn't care about ego, and the market definitely doesn't care about a man who owes more than the walls are worth. The first week, nothing. Not even a lowball offer, not even a curious message, just views. People scrolling, people looking, people moving on. By week 2, the realtor called him, and I'm going to tell you exactly why that call mattered, because it wasn't about pricing, it was about reality. "Ryan," the realtor said, voice careful, polite, the way people talk when they're holding bad news like a fragile glass. "We might need to adjust expectations." Ryan's jaw tightened. "Meaning?" A pause. Then the truth. "Meaning, if someone buys this, the bank will still need to approve it." Ryan snapped. "It's my house. It's collateral." The realtor corrected softly. And that word, collateral, that was the word that made his stomach drop. Because collateral is what you call something you don't actually own. Collateral is what you offer when you're building a house of cards and calling it a castle. He hung up. He didn't want advice. He wanted a miracle. So he tried a different trick. He started calling old contacts. People he used to impress. Men he used to shake hands with at events. Investors. Friends. Friends. He pitched them like it was an opportunity. Like they'd be lucky. But the responses were colder than winter. One guy didn't answer. Another said he was tight right now. Another asked one question that Ryan couldn't survive. What's the real reason you're selling? Because in every rich circle, there's always one thing they can smell: desperation. And Ryan reeked of it. Then came the next wave. The lawsuits, the vendors. The people who'd been smiling at his parties 2 years ago, now emailing him with subject lines like, final notice, delinquent, payment required, and he couldn't hide it anymore. Not from his mother, not from his friends, not from Tyler. Tyler started noticing the cracks before Ryan admitted anything. Because kids don't need spreadsheets to understand panic. They understand tone. They understand body language. They understand when a father stops buying groceries and starts buying excuses. One night Tyler came back from Ryan's place and sat at my table quietly. He didn't even take his jacket off. He just looked at me and said, "Mom, is Dad broke?" I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't know. Because I needed Tyler to say it out loud, to see it, to own the truth. So I asked him softly, "What makes you think that?" Tyler swallowed. He keeps saying it's fine, but he's always on the phone. And he got mad at the power company. And he told me not to touch the thermostat. That last one, that tiny detail. That's when I knew the collapse was real. Because when a man goes from buying watches to rationing heat, the game is over. Tyler's voice got smaller. He said you ruined him. I held Tyler's gaze, and I said the one sentence that never changes. I didn't ruin him. He did. Tyler blinked hard like he was trying not to cry. And then he said something that made me proud in a way I can't explain. He lies the way he breathes. Now I'm going to show you what happened next. Because once Tyler saw the truth, Ryan tried the last thing he had left. Not a lawyer, not a lawsuit, not a threat. He tried to come back to me, and he thought he could do it with one apology. Now I'm going to show you the last card Ryan had left. Me. Because when a man loses money, image, control, he suddenly remembers your value. Not because he loves you, because he needs you. It was a Thursday night, rain tapping the window like impatient fingers. Tyler was asleep. The apartment was quiet in that clean, honest way my old house never was. No tension, no performance, just peace. Then the knock came. 3 sharp taps. Not polite, not hesitant, confident. Like he still owned the right to enter my life. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. And there he was. Ryan Mercer. But not the Ryan from Instagram. Not the Ryan from events. Not the Ryan who walked into court like a king. This Ryan looked stripped. His suit was wrinkled. His face was hollow. Dark shadows under his eyes. He didn't look like a man who lost a marriage. He looked like a man who lost control. I opened the door only halfway. Ryan. He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for months. Alexis. He said my name like it still belonged to him. Like if he said it softly enough, I'd melt back into the role he missed. He tried to smile. It didn't land. I need to talk. I didn't move. I didn't step aside. I didn't invite him in. About what? His eyes flicked over my shoulder, scanning my apartment like he was measuring my life. Small couch, secondhand table, no luxury, no trophy signals. And I watched the moment it hit him. I wasn't suffering. I wasn't begging. I wasn't ruined. I was mud calm. That offended him more than anything. He swallowed. I didn't know it was this bad, he said. And there it was. The first lie. Because he always knew. He knew when he signed loans. He knew when he hid bills. He knew when he smiled in photos while the bank was counting down. But this wasn't a confession. It was a negotiation. I made mistakes, he continued, voice rough. I'm paying for them. I stared at him. And? His jaw tightened. I didn't mean for you to get hurt. That line. That's the line men say when they want credit for not meaning it. As if intentions erase damage. As if I didn't mean to is the same as I'm sorry. He took a step closer. Can we just reset? Reset. Like this was a phone. Like 15 years is a setting you toggle. I laughed once, quiet. And he flinched. Because he didn't come prepared for laughter. He came prepared for guilt. Ryan lowered his voice. Alexis, I need help. There. Finally. The truth. And for a split second, I saw the man I used to protect. The boy behind the arrogance. The fear behind the control. But then I remembered the kitchen table. The divorce demand. The way he said, I'll take the assets. You keep Tyler. So I didn't soften. I didn't flinch. I didn't rescue him. I said, calm and clear. You asked for everything. You got it. His face twisted. No, I didn't understand. I cut him off instantly. Oh, you understood. You understood perfectly when you were winning. You only got confused when the bill came. He stepped closer again, desperation rising. Please, this is bigger than us. I could lose the house. The business is collapsing. My mother... I tilted my head. Your mother? The one who packed my belongings in trash bags? He winced. Like he wanted to pretend she didn't exist. Like she was inconvenient now. He reached for my arm. I stepped back. The air changed. His eyes sharpened. And the entitlement tried to climb back into his voice. So that's it? You're just going to let me drown? I held his gaze. Yes. And I'm going to tell you why that yes was the real revenge. Because it wasn't anger. It wasn't cruelty. It was boundaries. He stared at me, stunned. Then he tried the last weapon men like him always reach for. Tyler. What about our son? My voice went flat. Don't. Don't use him. He opened his mouth again, and I ended it. You wanted everything except Tyler. I gave you exactly what you asked for. Ryan's lips trembled. Then he whispered, I miss you. That was the most dangerous line. Not because it was true, because it was convenient. So I gave him the only answer that mattered. Goodbye, Ryan. I closed the door, and I locked it. I stood there for a moment, listening. He didn't knock again. He didn't argue. He didn't shout. He just stood in the hallway, like a man realizing he'd lost the only person who used to save him from himself. Now I'm going to show you what happened after that. Because Ryan didn't just lose me. He lost the mistress. He lost the image. He lost the empire. And the final collapse was... fast. Now I'm going to show you the part nobody posts on Instagram. The silence after the fall. Because Ryan didn't lose everything in one dramatic moment. He lost it in pieces. One unpaid bill. One phone call he stopped answering. One friend who stopped returning messages. 2 weeks after he showed up at my door, Brittany was gone. Not a goodbye. Not a speech. Just... gone. I heard it from Tyler first. Dad's house is quiet, he said one night. That's how kids describe disaster. Simple. Honest. Deadly. Ryan tried to pretend it was temporary. He started posting again. Old photos. Quotes about resilience. A gym selfie. A caption about rebuilding. But the comments were different now. People weren't clapping. They were watching. Because once the illusion cracks, everyone starts looking for the truth. A month later, the house went on the market. And here's the part Ryan didn't understand. When you owe more than something is worth, you don't sell it. You surrender it slowly. Realtors suggested a short sale. Banks called with options. Contractors demanded payment up front, then stopped showing up. The business followed right after. The vendors who used to smile at Ryan in meetings sent formal letters, then lawsuits, then liens. The line of credit froze. Accounts got flagged. And suddenly, the man who loved saying, "We're expanding," was saying, "We're restructuring," which is just corporate language for, "We're bleeding." Lorraine tried to save the image. Of course she did. She always thought reputation was a shield. She called people, old friends, charity contacts, her little social circle. But this wasn't gossip. This was math, and math doesn't care who you are. By Christmas, her newsletter was 2 sentences long. Ryan is exploring new opportunities. We're grateful for family during this season. Translation: we're in trouble, and nobody is picking up the phone. Diane tried to crawl back too. She called me once, then twice, then left a voice note so shaky it almost sounded like she was crying. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know it was that bad. I'm so sorry. I didn't respond, because some apologies are just people trying to clean their conscience, and I wasn't responsible for her feelings anymore. Lorraine tried a different route. She went through Tyler. Classic. She asked him to tell your mother she wanted to talk, that she regretted how things happened, that she never knew about the debt. Tyler looked at her and said the cleanest sentence I've ever heard from a teenager. Mom's busy building her life. She doesn't have time for excuses. That's when I knew my son was okay. Not because he picked a side, because he learned to recognize manipulation. And that was the one thing I wanted more than revenge: peace. Meanwhile, I did what Ryan never thought I could do. I rebuilt without drama. No grand speeches. No revenge parties. Just work. I took the $50,000. I used it like a ladder, not a trophy. Rent, deposit, basic furniture, a laptop, a quiet place to think. Then I enrolled in interior design courses. Not because it was cute, because it was mine. Because for years I'd been designing model homes for Ryan's image, and never once built a life for myself. My first client was a woman named Sandra, 52, ending a long marriage, standing in her empty apartment like she didn't know where to start. She asked me, "How do you start over?" I looked at her and said, "One room at a time, one decision at a time, one day at a time." We painted her kitchen sage green. She cried when she saw it. Happy tears. She said it looked like hope. And that's when my business began. Not with money, with meaning. A few months later, Ryan's name popped up again. Not at my door, in a court filing, bankruptcy. And here's the strangest thing. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt detached. Like watching a storm finally finish what it started. Because the truth is, I didn't destroy him. I just stopped protecting him from himself. On the 1-year anniversary of the divorce, Tyler and I went out for dinner. Nothing fancy. Just good food. Warm lights. A quiet table. He raised his glass and said, "You were right to wait." And I realized the biggest win wasn't money. It wasn't watching Brittany leave. It wasn't Lorraine scrambling. It was this. My son learned what strength looks like. Not screaming, not fighting, not begging. Choosing yourself quietly. So if you're still here, listening, here's what I want you to take from my story. People will try to take everything from you. Your role, your time, your identity, your confidence. But they can't take what you protected in silence. They can't take what you built when nobody was looking. And they definitely can't take your peace. Unless you hand it to them. The apartment was small. The furniture was secondhand. But every choice in it was mine. Every color, every decision, every breath. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I wasn't surviving inside someone else's empire. I was building my own.